Hey everyone, yay, it's me. I'm live. Live stream. Hey everyone, hey, it's me. I'm live. So I hope everyone's doing well. Hope someone joins, but if not, I'll just start doing some work. Hope you guys are enjoying these support sessions. It's not a big deal to be sitting here, but it's nice when people actually join live or submit questions, and we can try to tackle them. I think Tom said he's going to pop in. He may have some other stuff going on. I'm not sure, but hopefully he joins here in a bit. YouTube emoji. Anyway, all right. So let me find some stuff I've been working on and see what's going on with that. This live where I can see it. It's okay. Someone just joined and asked a question. I'm on it, and I did get one submission, and the same person had emailed me before, and I wrote it back. Oh, good. Hey, Dimitri.
Hi, Joe.
How you doing? Oh, make your mic.
Wait, is it now better?
It seems a little better right now. I was doing some weird sound effects.
I think my volume was set a little bit too high.
Yeah. How's it going?
Okay, I had a really ugly cough the last weeks, and now it's a little bit better, but now I still have to go to the dentist because a tooth of mine is hurting.
I don't know if it's possible. If you want to drop your mic volume just a little bit more, it's not terrible, but when you peak, when you talk a little louder, then it's distorted. But it's fine. Especially if you speak in a nice even tone, then it's great. But yeah, that sucks. I went over 20 years without going to the dentist just because I didn't have insurance, and I finally went, and they're like, because I was always good about brushing my teeth, twice a day, and they're like, you don't have any problems.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, in Belgium we have it's way better organized than in America. We have it's normal that you can go to the dentist, and it isn't that expensive for us.
Ours aren't either, typically. It just depends what you have done, But a typical visit's not much. I just, was young and healthy and didn't have any pain. And anyway, I was down. I mean, I should have gone, right? But and then when I first went, it's not because, this is off topic, but when I grew up, I was going to this retired Army dentist, and as a kid, right? And he would just, no matter what, it's like, oh, that doesn't hurt. And we doing, like ripping out a tooth and stuff. And it was not that I had a fear of dentists, because I knew he was a jackass, but it sure didn't make me want to go. And then when I finally went, the people were so nice. Hey, I'm going to do this to you right now. This might hurt. I mean, they were so, and I'm like, you can trust me. Anything you do, nothing's going to matter. Anyway, so I didn't actually even play with that. When you said, hey, you joined me, I didn't end up trying that. So I'm very interested to see the.
Yeah, I can show it to you.
Yeah.
Share my screen. Screen. Oh wait, no, that is the wrong script. Wait, I'll open it. It's actually a small example of a GUI written in AutoHotkey version 1. I'm switching now a lot between 1 and 2, so. And actually, the code to implement it is quite simple. You see here just a DLL call and an initialization, and I think this is to exit it. and then you just apply it here, skin form, and you make the GUI, and then you exit it. Actually, I just copied this from the internet, and I find it strange that a lot of people are talking about custom buttons and things like that to make it nice visual, but in a lot of it's nice if you can just apply a theme to it, and that is actually what this does. So here is the normal GUI, and if you just double click something, oh wait, I'll switch my screen because it pops up on the other.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and every time you'd have to move it. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So nice. This is actually, I find this one of the nicer one. I was looking for something like a dark mode of Windows 7, but it's actually hard to find. But maybe if somebody has other examples, it would be nice, because I code a lot now in VS Code, and I've added here a function to call. It's now not working, of course, if you want to demonstrate.
Of course, because we're live, yeah.
Yeah. But normal, it would show a normal GUI, and it has a high contrast to the nice dark mode that I standard have. And I also try to change the colors of the message box of the GUI, but it doesn't work very well if you just change a background color for AutoHotkey. So it's nicer if you can do more.
Yeah, let's talk about that just a little bit, because it's one of the gripes I hear a lot is when we just use the general AutoHotkey GUIs, they look very dated, right? And they're very functional, right? They're amazingly functional, and generally speaking, compared to other languages at least, very easy to use. However, they just look old. And by simply applying a theme here, it's amazing how much better it looks. So really good call on applying a theme and going, this doesn't look nearly as dated. I love it.
Yeah.
I wish, I don't know, have you ever watched Hellbent's videos?
What?
He has Hellbent. He has a channel called Civ Reborn. I'll put the link in. Actually, I'll put it in the chat here.
Of course, not all the styles are working good, so yeah. And I actually haven't experimented a lot. For example, here you see the border. It's quite an issue. But
so a couple weeks ago, Hellbent and I did a video where he has a GUI. He's using GDI to create custom buttons, and he has a tool for it. But his tool, even though it's called like creating custom buttons, it's really for creating a theme, and then you can easily apply it to your buttons, and they look amazing. You can customize them as much as you want. But I would love to have seen, and I'll tell him to watch this later. But this, I don't think he'll switch, but it's still, I think it's a really great example of, hey, you know what, we can and we could tidy up what you've done, and yours, you're still doing the DLL calls directly, right? But we could make that a little simpler for people who don't want to deal with it, right? And kind of hide, put that in the background and wrap it all. But anyway,
that's very cool. True. And it would be nice if I found something. It's actually separate. This is a folder. I have some separate files.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it was something of Windows 7, I think, that they used, and so people started to make their own, and this is legacy from it. But maybe it's even possible to apply the real dark mode of Windows 7.
Did you open those in an editor? What do they look like? They're probably almost like an XML file.
I'll open the best example that I have.
Wow, those are big files for just being text.
Yeah.
Oh, that's surprising. I did not expect that. I thought they were going to be almost like I was thinking like an RTF file, where you can kind of understand what's going on. But no, that's like binary.
I think null is always just in between. So the color I see here, if you.
Yeah.
I think it's normal text, but wait, I'll open it with another editor. Where is Notepad? So this is text. So I think you can probably play with it, but the file is quite huge. So
yeah, surprisingly.
And on the internet, I also found some kind of an editor tool to modify it, but I haven't played around with it yet. And for me, it would be this is a nice method, but it would be even cooler if we could use the built-in functions of Windows 7, that you have the dark mode, because I really like the look of it. Actually, I was looking for something like what my current editor looks like. And wait, I think I posted my posts.
In the chat, I put a link to a wiki, which is gave a little background on what the MS styles are, which I assume that's what that is. But yeah, that's really interesting.
Actually, I have here an example where somebody made. Somebody made the message box creator for AutoHotkey version 2.
Yeah.
And then I improved it a little bit to the new beta version. And I also tried to recolor it with the custom AutoHotkey functions. And you see here you can have some kind of a dark mode, but you also see that the buttons aren't that nice.
Yeah, they're okay, but yeah, I mean that's where again creating custom buttons gives you full control, but still just applying a theme, that's an amazing improvement, or at least it feels like it's an improvement, right? Because it's simply window glossing, for lack of a better term, or lipstick.
Yeah, it's just the outside, but it's way more easier to just two rows and everything, your radio buttons, everything is nicer.
Yeah.
Than to color everything and move heaven and earth to get a nice look.
Yeah, you'll have to. I'll send you the link. It's a long video. It's like an hour long. But the stuff that Hellbent did with his, because he has the video was on his theme on the button theme creator, but he had already created a class that makes it very easy for creating. Looking at, if someone clicks the button and taking an action. So with the two tied together, it made it much easier. Now, I still understand your point of it's still work. It's still a fair amount of work compared to with AutoHotkey's default GUIs. They're very easy. It's built in here. Well, and that's of course you're just leveraging the Windows GUIs. But yeah, I still think that's amazing how good they look.
Yeah, also if you hover over something, that something lights up.
Nice.
Else you always need to program that in it, or make some kind of a special class that will take care for you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's very cool. Have you anything else you've been working on?
Actually, I tried improving my simulation of Notepad.
Oh, cool!
And, I actually I even just posted it on the forum because I thought, yeah, maybe it's a little bit plagiat. I don't know how you call it in English. That you steal something because Notepad is from Microsoft.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that I make money on it.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think I actually have two versions. One that tries to use a class to make it, and the other one that uses the functions. I think this one that uses a class, and it's I always have difficulties with classes because they can become quite complicated.
Yeah.
So I'll run it. But yeah, for example, if you want to open a new, for example, if you start typing in Notepad, you will get a star in it, and that indicates that you changed the file.
Right.
And if you try then to open a new one, then you need to get an extra window that tries to ask you, do you want to save the changes and things like that. So this is a new GUI that pops up, and then, for example, with the class, it's sometimes difficulty, sometimes you lose the connection to the original GUI, and yeah, then everything crashes. And one thing, you're actually calling an event, and then I noticed, for example, this button, this uses an event, and if you destroy the GUI before trying to change something in the other GUI, then the script will crash. Things like that. And I think I have had one guy who helped me a lot, but a little bit too much even, that he was a little bit sick of it. Schwach.
Oh, I've seen some stuff.
It's a genius. It's amazing what he can do. And he really understands his classes.
I forget what, I borrowed something from him and did a video on it, but I tweaked what he did, but I said, like, swag, I'm like, what a interesting name, but yeah, he's done some cool stuff.
And also sometimes if he posts something on the forum, it's really high level.
Sure.
Very interesting what he can do. But actually, I find it a nice exercise to work with a class. But for AutoHotkey version 2, it's actually not even necessary anymore, because you can have functions inside functions. So here is the other version that works even. Wait, code is already running here. This does almost everything that you actually want. So you can change everything.
That's so awesome, man. That's great.
You can
good for you.
Find something, add. You can replace, and it's a really good exercise. I was just playing around with it just to try to learn something and how to select something inside a control, and it was challenging and interesting. And the nice thing is, if you start with the concept, I want to copy Notepad, you have a clear goal to achieve. And the functionalities that you want to have. But for me, this was an exercise to see how easy it is with the second version of AutoHotkey. And I really like it because you don't need to work with global variables anymore. What was kind of a must-have if you wanted to do some special things with the first version.
And that was the other one, is just so people that end up watching this know, and I see Eric is on here now too, but you led the webinar we did on AutoHotkey version 2, and gave a really differences and and working with it and well, Jackie and I think did a separate one, but we talked about the pros and cons and why you would want to switch. And other actually, you just presented a pretty good reason, right? If you could do a lot of this stuff without using a class in version 2. However, the vast majority of the changes aren't, they're more, I think, to help AutoHotkey have a better reputation as a programming language than it is actual functionality that you get. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I could agree. But I'm enthusiastic about it. I really like it. I even worked a lot on the converter for it.
Oh, cool. Nice.
And it also, I think I already showed it to you, and now it's actually really running good. But yeah, if your code starts to become very complicated, it's normal that some problems will arise. So, but you can actually use it and try it out. But it works already quite good for simple code.
Now I'm curious, just because I'm going to be mean and evil. Would you be able to quote unquote easily apply a theme to your Notepad example?
We can try. Wait.
Because I was just thinking, what would be kind of cool is to have a dark theme Notepad, because a lot of people hate, they have to use something as a quick editor, but some people like Maestricht. I don't know if you know Maestricht. His room is like pitch black, so he has no lights on. So when something like Notepad pops up, he's like, "Oh my God, it's blinding."
Okay. I'm going to make it easy for me and just. You need this DLL file. I'll just copy it.
Is that you have to go find that, or is that actually on the computer already?
You need to go find it, and I think I've sent you an email. There inside is a link to a forum post, and there you can download it.
Okay.
But I couldn't send it to you because DLL files are recognized as malicious, possible malicious software,
right.
And that's the reason why.
Yeah, it was interesting. Tank said he thought one of the big reasons why AutoHotkey gets flagged as a virus is the DLL calls. That it can perform is the big trick there.
Yeah, that's probably true. Now we need these two. I think let's try just to use the first one. Probably it's proper to also use to exit, but we'll see what the result is. And now we need the skin. So that would be this. Of course, we copied it. Yeah. That's because I'm working now. I was mixing version 1 and version 2.
Yeah.
But
I can't imagine. I have a hard enough time starting to type like Python or JavaScript in AutoHotkey. I can't imagine using 2 different versions of AutoHotkey and keeping that straight.
Okay. No, I'll be lazy. I just use my converter.
You'll laugh at this. Someone, it's funny because a lot of the stuff that obviously that we do together, is on my channel. And for whatever reason, people will write me, "Hey Joe, you created this Excel to VBA converter or this version 1 to 2 converter," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's not me. That's that's you." And I given the link to the forum, but I said it's awesome, but no, I haven't done it.
I have the impression that it's failing. Yeah, it's not doing anything. So you can search it. That's also one nice function of my converter. If you press F1, then it will go look up the function that you have of your cursor. And it depends on which edit field you are. So if you are in version 1, it will go look for version 1.
That's great. Yeah.
And here, apparently you need to put quotes. So.
Yeah, I can't keep that stuff straight. That's exactly why I have either a hot string or I'll put something like that in a QAP as a template, so I don't have to try to memorize that kind of stuff.
Let's try it. Not sure if it will work. No. Fail to load.
Can you hear the background noise on my end? My contractor, he's putting up the carport right now. He seems to only work like on Fridays, at this exact time. It's funny. He'll start doing something loud during that time.
Still, it's strange. I'll try to redo it. I think maybe the aster needs to change. No, it's not changing. I think it was something that. Well, I'll go look it up. Oh, actually,
well, you know what? I mean, here's the thing. What I really appreciate you doing this live is it helps people understand. Even when you've done this a bit, you got to look up stuff and you got to troubleshoot, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah, but it's not really good for a video. And to be fair, I'm somebody who just learns from examples, and for the most of the time, the high advanced stuff, I need to have a nice example, and that I can make it work. Here, I think skin name. Maybe there is the error. No, that should. I have no idea. Wait. I know. I was looking. Here he was looking for a subfolder, and it actually doesn't exist. Okay, then we have another. Instance. And apparently my other script, I'm not really that used. I just recently started to use Visual Studio Code, so it's still. And apparently, if you run two scripts at the same time, it will sometimes crash and things like that. But it's amazing what you can do with it. But
did you watch our webinar on it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah,
But
Isaiah did a great job, especially showing how it incorporates with GitHub, right? That was uh,
I
for
actually
me.
worked with translating an extension for it
Oh, cool.
because somebody made an extension for the version 2, but there
Oh,
was a lot of Chinese commentary in it,
mm.
and that was kind of annoying. So I just ran it through Google Translate and sent
Oh,
him the updated files, and then he fixed that. I think he did because I just changed my native files for it.
yeah, Google Translate. I mean, obviously, with some things, it's pretty terrible, but on average, I'm helping a local Mexican restaurant, and they barely speak English. So when I text him, I use Google Translate to convert it all for him to Spanish, and then he writes me back in Spanish, and I convert it back, and it's it's close enough where we can have conversations, and it's so fast.
Yeah, but you cannot translate a lot of text. It's limited to a certain amount of characters.
Well, I have they have an API, and I have programmatic. I'm using the API. So you pay, but it's so tiny, and I'm sure there's a threshold anyway. So I don't think I've ever paid. But
Yeah.
yeah, the API takes care of that.
No, at the moment I'm not finding the error in my ways.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like what I've always realized is so I was the cub master for my son. And even before that, I did it for like 5 years in a row. You know what the Pinewood Derby is? So
No?
every year they create these they carve them and stuff, and you have this thing. And so anyway, you have like 30 to 100 kids, and then all of their parents, and they race them side by side, right? Well, they need some poor sap, which was usually me, to sit at the computer and show who's racing next and who's competing with who. And the software was so buggy, it would crash over all the time. And so everyone's trying to see who won. Everyone, I felt like hundreds of eyeballs staring at me with intensity because I had an overhead projector, right? So everyone's watching. But I finally realized it made it so hard to think, is my point. Like when I felt like all these people and I would be trying to troubleshoot, I would just unplug because it was just easier. I'd unplug the cable and then I would work, and I'm like, I could think. But man, when I knew everyone was staring at me, it was so much the stress, even though I don't really even, didn't think I felt stressed, but like I did. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I actually have no idea what goes wrong
Okay.
here.
Don't worry about it.
Seems
Yeah, it was worth a try.
the normal thing I do if I cannot find it after half an hour, you just post it on the forum, and somebody way smarter than you can teach you something, and that way you learn a lot.
I would change what you said there to make you slightly just say just more knowledgeable, right? Because it's not how smart, because you could figure it out, right? But it's like with someone who's already leveled up and knows this stuff, for them it's a minute or two, and yeah, it's much more about knowledge than it is intelligence or being smart.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. This is so small amount of code. It should be easy to debug, but apparently it's not that simple.
Well, maybe this is a stupid question, and maybe it's just too much of a pain. You did this in version 2, correct?
Yes.
Should you have tried it in version 1? Because you had it in version 1 also, didn't you? You had the notepad in version 1. Or no, you did that all in version 2. I'm sorry.
I think this is a first version where I put it in inside anything, just a global GUI in the global environment. But that gave a problem because you couldn't call two windows. Okay. So that was actually the second one was then that I use functions, and I think this is now it's failing, of course, of this line. Was other. now you can call as many windows as you want. And also, because that is also a tricky part, you can make a GUI that's an editor, and then you open several of them and you save, and then he saves the other one. So that is also a tricky one. You need to have in mind what the file path is, and that's also one big advantage of version 2. That you can just say, okay, that GUI I give it a new property, and the property is file path. And then afterwards, if you connect to the GUI with another function, you can access that property again. So it's amazing. That's so easy to be flexible. It's amazing.
Regarding the creating of the new GUIs or instances of it, I mean, that to me, and see, I haven't, while I've used classes here and there, for me, I'm behind you on that one. But I do understand some of the big benefits of it. And to me, one of the big benefits is when you're creating a whole new instance of the thing, that's where classes rock, right? Because managing all that stuff and everything is just, it's much easier to control for and to keep track of.
Yeah, that's true. But the fact that GUI is also that has also a lot of power and gives you a lot of the advantages that you would have to use a class to generate a GUI become less advantage because you can access it as an object.
Okay.
And also zooming in and out here, zooming in and out doesn't work. And I think in this version it works. So also, for example, if you click here, then the indication of the position also needs to change and things like that.
Put a lot of work, but that's where having something to mimic, because you would probably have never have done that on your own, right? Or I wouldn't think so. But when you see it in the other one, you're like, oh, well, how do they do that? Okay, and it forces you to learn new things that you probably wouldn't have done on your own.
Yeah, and if I ever need something similar, I can just copy this script, and it has already a lot of functionalities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool, man.
I'll try to fix it or figure out because it's, of course, I also want to make it work. Actually, I'll try to apply it to the other script. Maybe it's different. I would find it strange, but yeah, it's the same error. I could try to change this variable a little bit. No, maybe you? No.
Yeah, and this is where it's DLL call. It was funny. A while ago, I gave RaptorX or Isaias, a thing to review side by side with me, and I'm like, okay, rate how difficulty each of these things are, and it was like, sending mouse clicks, connecting to a COM object, DLL call, in a bunch. I had like 17 different ways to connect, right? So it was like rate on a scale of 1 to 10, and I think he gave DLL calls like a 2 or a 3, something. It was really low, like it's difficult. And I'm like, oh, this is all relative, like if you're back to those geniuses, people who've actually studied this stuff, oh, it's really easy. Blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, it's easy based on your knowledge level, right? Like, to me, it's voodoo, and I have to borrow from someone else, and maybe I can make a tweak. But yeah, it's painful.
And of course, that's one of the major disadvantages of version 2 is that there aren't a lot of examples for it.
Yeah, right.
And I am somebody who copies a lot and tries to learn from other people, and yeah, that makes it harder to understand. But a lot of things are just the same, so it's even simpler. So yeah.
Well, and it was, I think, around 3 weeks ago, and I actually went back and excerpted it because it was a really good. Tank was on the admin to the forum, and I had talked to him on the side about it, so I brought him on to talk a bit more about how is the forum going to handle version 2. And Dimitri, how long? I don't remember how long you've been playing with AutoHotkey.
It should be something 10 years, maybe.
Oh, okay. Then you might have been around, just like me. When I started in AutoHotkey, well, the first 2 years, I was just using hotkeys and hot strings, right? And I never went to the forum, didn't do anything. It was very rare. And then I got a new job at TI, and I started trying to learn dot notation and web scraping and object orientation stuff. And that was right when they were switching from the vanilla version to the version L or 1.1, excuse me. And I'll tell you, it was such a mess. Were you in the forum at that time?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you probably came in just after it, because right before it was so confusing because you'd see COM, examples of COM one way, and then before it was integrated in AutoHotkey, it was kind of like a DLL call in the complexity. You know what I mean? Much more complicated. And then when Lexicos built it into L, it was so much easier to follow. But when you're learning this, but no one's explaining that, in the forum, and no one's saying, hey, there's 2 different versions and you're new, it was so confusing for users. And my fear is with version 2 launching, people are going to be intermixing, not clarifying like you're doing here, which is great, what version of AutoHotkey you're using. And especially if you're new, right? You don't pay attention to this stuff. So Tank was kind of feeling like maybe even justifying either completely separate threads, subforums, or an entirely even different website, which both ideas, I think, have a lot of pros and cons to them, besides what you're doing, which is great. It's a good start.
For example, if you're looking for examples, then it's possible that you just want to find first the version 2 examples. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But now every code that I make, I'll try to add requires statement in it.
Actually, I'm not even familiar. What the hell is that Is that a directive? Requires?
Yeah, it actually indicates that it requires that version of AutoHotkey or a higher version.
That's awesome. I didn't know. And that's in the 1.1 as well?
It's also in the 1.1, yes.
Okay. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's wonderful. We should have mentioned that in the web. Maybe you did. Maybe I didn't know it, but that's a great one for everybody to start putting in their scripts. Yeah,
yes, if you use some newer functions of the last versions, I think case is one of the last added additions to the AutoHotkey. That you have several cases. Do you know it?
No, cases? What?
I can show it to you.
Thank you. Oh, case. I'm sorry. Yeah. That was one, and I think actually we have a video on it with Isaias and Tank. I wasn't able to make the call. Tank was supposed to talk about case and switch, and it was just I wasn't available, so I said, you guys just have the call and record it, and I'd love to watch it. Well, they talked about that, but then they went on to talk about 8 million other things, including some really advanced stuff. It was like something like fat something. I mean, there was this stuff, and I'm like, what in the voodoo are you guys talking about? But anyway, sorry. Go ahead and.
It's quite simple. You just input a variable, and depending on the value of it, you run some code. You could also write something with if-else statements. Actually, for me, I personally don't use it a lot because, yeah.
Well, that was what we were looking at. Case and is it switch? Is that what it is? There's
Here is also switch.
Okay, yeah, and so we were, and it was after I watched it, after the fact, and because Azayas and I, before we had the call with Tank, him and I were trying to talk through, well, what's the benefit of using this, compared to this and that. And he that's where we're like, well, maybe. And I had messaged Tank, and he's like, I'm knowledgeable on it. So again, I missed that live call, but it was like, it's not a huge benefit. It's a little cleaner if you know exactly what the value is, I think is what it was, or something. But
yeah, but you're way more flexible if you use if else statement.
Right.
It's also a little bit faster, but I think there is also a limit to the amount. Here. It may only list up 20 values. For example,
interesting.
A sentence like this makes me think, should I use it? Because in maybe one extreme situation that I need more of it, and then it's kind of strange that I don't know why there is a limit to it. It's
right. Yeah.
It's super fast, but yeah.
Yeah, and here's the other fun thing, like to me, that stuff that's been added for the last 5 years to just in AutoHotkey in general. It's lots of interesting stuff, but when people start talking about speed and stuff, I'm like, AutoHotkey, it's just kind of you're not going for speed, right? Generally speaking, if you're programming AutoHotkey, you want something simple that's easy to use and very straightforward. And it's great that it's faster, but to me, I'm like, I'm not doing hundreds of thousands or millions of lines of execution.
Yeah, and speed is kind of relative. What
right.
Most normal people define as speed is for us slow. For a computer, is that just slow?
Well, now, and here's the big distinction to me, which I think one of the biggest strengths of AutoHotkey is this quote unquote speed, but it's the speed of development. It's the speed of a noob to come in and do something. It takes me sometimes minutes, a couple minutes to write a script to do what I want. Like the other day, when I go and copy a link, because I'll create a pretty link from my WordPress browser, when I copy, after I create it, I can copy it, but it puts in the www in the URL, and it doesn't uppercase the automator or the A in the automator and does stuff. And it dawned on me, I'm like, wait a minute, you can monitor a change to your clipboard. So why don't I monitor the change to the clipboard when a change happens, look to see if it's text. If it's text, go through and do a search replace for these words. And so now, anytime when I hit copy, this very, very fast thing happens behind the scenes and replaces it for me. And I'm like, when I worked in corporate America, the people that I worked with, a lot of them were doing stuff in, marketing and communications. And there was the brand police that would, you got to make sure you have the trademark and all the stuff. And I'm like, this would have taken care of, in the background. They don't even have to do anything. You just have to copy the text and bam, it's standardized, right? And I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think about this, 3 years ago, but it took me a couple minutes to write the code. It was really simple, but anyway, I loved it.
But that's typically, if you start getting used to AutoHotkey, doing it actually practically everything is possible. Yeah. You just need time. Some things are quite very fast to do. You just need to say, okay, I take an hour and I'll write it and I try to make it clean and sturdy.
Yeah. Well,
good idea is gold. Is gold.
Yeah. What I would say though is, in your example with creating your own version of Notepad, is something people should also consider. I'm much more along the lines of, I'm a needs. I learn my programming based on my needs. If I need to do something right now, I'm going to do this. But you should be taking 10, 15% of your time, if you can, block it off and do something like you're doing, right? Building something you don't necessarily need, but it's forcing you to expand what you're doing, because suddenly, which I think you even said earlier, if you ever do have that need, you have the code. It's in the knowledge, more importantly. You could go borrow from it, right? And Jackie and I were talking about it. hey, should you automate something or not? Some people think, no, I can do this thing in a couple seconds. Like, the answer is always yes, automate it, because one way or another, you're going to reuse that code or knowledge or whatever at a later date in different ways, and it just adds to that knowledge base of what you have.
Yeah. And actually what I've done is, because I have quite a huge script at my company that I run, and also a lot of colleagues use it in my department, and a few people outside my department, but it's kind of labeled as illegal because I cannot give support for it, but it's thing because it's just that useful. And IT official statement is, yeah, we will make our own version, but that's where it stopped.
So I was talking with Tank the other. I don't know if it was recorded or not. I don't remember. We were just chit chatting, and he's like, "Oh, I've been on live calls where people have. Let's say it's your Notepad program that it was a custom program, built for that department, right? Whatever it is, right? And they're having a meeting with the IT group because they're like, well, we love the program, but we'd like it to do this instead. And they want to, move something around or do something. And the IT group is like, well, that'll be $50,000 and it'll be about 6 months. And so Tank says he's done this several times where he's at the meeting and he hears this and he just starts and he goes, here, try this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, just run this. And they run it, and it actually solves the problem. It does, because with AutoHotkey, you can programmatically connect to stuff, right? It does what they're asking. And it is, and the IT group was like, well, when are you going to make it? He's like, no, it's made. This is it. You're done. And it's just so funny that IT groups can be, and back to your other thing of the whole politics of stuff, where you can create something, but then letting other groups use it or whatever, because that's not your quote unquote job, yet it's going to save the company so much more money, right? But that's why I don't miss corporate America is they're the ones that have the most need, because there's the most people kind of can replicate, have a lot more people, so the benefits really grow up. But the headache that comes with that,
Yeah, I have a similar example, because some of the functionalities that I created on my job existed already, or some kind of it, but I didn't find there was some. It was a little bit slower. You needed to push a little more buttons, and I just remade it all the way and added some, so that you only need to press one button and a click, and it does several things for you that you always need to do. And yeah, it worked way better. And now actually we have the new version of Windows, and they decided not to update the old functionality of the other enterprise. So I'm gaining influence.
That's awesome, man. Well, hopefully, and I would say I would highly encourage you to, in some way, keep track of how much time you're saving. And it could just be a ballpark figure, right, of how many users are using it. And every time they use it, hey, it saves them 5 seconds, but they use it 30 times a day, whatever it is, and be able to do that math, because it's just good to have in your back pocket, right? It also looks good on your resume when you post and you've created tools that have saved the company, because then you multiply that times the average pay. Let's say it's $30 an hour or whatever, and suddenly you have a figure in how much you saved your company. And I did it at TI at one point, and I said, okay, I made a couple tools, and I'm like, how much time have I saved them? Because we had 50 people using it, and I forget how much, but it was a really, really big figure that what I had ended up saving them.
Yeah, but actually I also have thought of it, but I'm always hesitant, because it's actually kind of, I could anonymize it. That would be
right. That's what I always did. Yeah.
Because I know some of my colleagues use it a lot, and they have a huge advantage of it. But a lot of colleagues of mine are also a little bit older, and then it's a little bit more difficult to adapt a new thing.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. Yeah.
And then I go to my colleague and he's doing something, and I need to restrain myself to say, yeah, you could have done that with 2 mouse clicks. But you also need to accept sometimes that people like to work on their own, and
yeah. It's so, what I found is interesting, because I've done one-on-one interviews with a lot of people, like 20, 30 people, of just talking about AutoHotkey and this and that. And it's always interesting because we'll talk about how some people, like I've had 2 bosses that specifically told me not to automate things, and it really perplexed me. But it gets back to, I think there's maybe at the subconscious level to some degree, there's a couple of reasons. One is I like the mundane work because I don't have to think. You know what I mean? I'm doing something and I feel productive. So by me doing this stuff, I feel like I accomplished something. When the computer does it and I hit a button, the computer does it for me, it's suddenly not me doing it, right? And I don't know if that's part of why. But then there's just the people don't like to change, right? So they don't understand it. And I think that's a bigger play. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's true. But maybe also those mundane jobs also have their purpose, because it also gives you a little bit downtime, that you can relax a little bit, that you don't need to think. And I think nowadays our computers are getting way more advanced, and also easy jobs are getting taken care of.
Yeah.
But that also means that every action that you do, you need to pay a lot more attention to it, and
right.
That also maybe gives a few more stress to the people. It's
sure.
if you work faster, you don't get paid more, you get more work.
Well, hopefully that's where it of course just depends, but generally speaking, when you are doing less mundane things and things that require real thought, you should hopefully make more money, right? Not always, but hopefully, it's because you're using your brain. And Jackie and I, it's on our list to do as a podcast, because I think it's a great topic of what are, when we're automating things, what should the computer do and what should a human do? Right. And it breaks down. Computers are great doers, but to build a program to do the thinking behind, the logic behind, that can take a fair amount of work, right? Especially if you're trying to automate the entire process. And that's why I love AutoHotkey. Like, you can let the human still make the decision to do something, but they quickly decide, and the computer executes and actually does the task itself. But theoretically, if you're doing more of those things, you should hopefully be making more money, right? But yeah, it's not always.
Yeah, but at the other end, I like to program, and I find it fun to do and to advance, and I like that I have some kind of a hobby inside my job, to have some time to do something else that's quite useful, and where I learn a lot of useful skills that you could use anywhere in every company, and that's quite valuable.
We did have Eric was asking the question on. Unfortunately, we can't come up with an easy answer, but he's. Let me back up a step. So he says, I'm dying to know if there's a better way to query these rather than looping through thousands of rows with the mouse clicks. And I'm like, well, what, explain to me what these are. And he said, it's public records for an oil and gas production that is painfully organized. Essentially, I loop through each row of the table, a top table operations stage, and then loop through the bottom table to save values. And I said, well, I still need to know, the program. But if it is public information, Eric, and if you can give me a link or something to show me how to access it, then, because unfortunately he's not. I was asking what is in. He's not knowledgeable enough in AutoHotkey yet to just to answer that simply. I was going to say the built-in Windows Spy tool is a quick, easy way to start, but chances are, maybe he's using a browser to access it unless you download a program specific. But yeah, chances are pretty good in some way or another. There's a far better way to do what you're doing. And this is where it gets difficult now, especially if it is something privileged you can't share. We could plan another time where it's just you and I on the call, and you can show me and I can walk you on your computer, walk you through how to start looking at it. But there's lots of ways, especially if you're using a browser or something, you can automate the browser, or even better yet, you can look at the API traffic and monitor that and possibly just grab it straight away instead of even interacting with your browser, which it's what I've switched. It's more difficult, but it's worth the work once you start learning how to do that. Have you, Dimitri, played with APIs, web service APIs?
Actually, this year I have my brother. He has a company that puts solar panels on site roofs, and he had inscribed himself to another website that actually tries to find people who need that. But you need to check the website to see if some people are asking for it. And then you need to click on a link to say, okay, I'm interested. And then you get the contact information of that client. Uh-huh. But the problem was he was always too late. And I tried to, first he was talking about, they're sending me a link in my email, and I want to detect when the email is received, and then I want you to click on that and do something. So I first tried that, and it started to work, but it was still too slow, because I think that other companies are also using some advanced tools for it. So in the end, I tried to use Chrome with Chrome.ak to check it. But even that I found a little bit too slow, and then I finished with using API calls, HTTP requests to track the data, and if it finds it, it would open the window and start clicking to it. Because that's also an advantage, that you have something running in the background and checking it every second. If something interesting is new on the website, and then if he detects something, then he will show the window of Chrome that also the users can understand and can see what happened.
Mm-hmm. Now, but you were saying you're doing all that with Chrome?
No, he's checking with the HTTP request. That's not Chrome.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah.
So checking is every second. I think he's checking the website.
Yeah.
And if he detects something, then he'll start to use Chrome.
Cool. That's all. Sorry, I missed that little detail. But that's a perfect. I think that's awesome, dude, because you're taking advantage of you do using a WinHTTP request or even the XML request. They're both objects that AutoHotkey can use to go out and ping and get some results back, take a quick look, and then, hey, all right, we want to throw this in. Instead of trying to build your own GUI for displaying it, well, just use the freaking browser, right? Like so why would you bother with that? But that's very cool.
And also, of course, clicking on the button, doing that with an AP request would maybe be quite difficulty, and maybe they could even detect that you're not really using Chrome. But it feels like hacking, because sometimes you need to really pretend to use a browser and things like that.
But what you could do, and it's not a surefire way, but by using with the WinHTTP request, by using adding a user agent, you can put your Chrome user agent into that, and it will, mimic it pretty well. But the XML HTTP request. That's the one. So now it's with IE, and actually Tank gave me an example for this, but I haven't tried it. With IE, Jackie showed me how with IE, I can connect to a thing with IE, and then from the IE page, use the XML HTTP request to send an API call. So it is from your IE window. It's just you're sending the API call from your own window. And what's great about that is it leverages your cookies. So you can log in with your IE window and then ping the server from that window with the API calls, which are just lightning fast compared to an actual full browser refresh.
Yeah. I just also simulate the cookies and also the browser, the user agent. So that also works. But it's quite tricky, and you need to test it a little bit. But it's once you have the information, then it's quite powerful, and you're not actually generating that much internet traffic. And yeah,
it's amazing the difference. And that's a great. Actually, that was another really interesting point. Which I've excerpted. So on that same call I mentioned with Tank a couple of weeks back, where I excerpted the V2 conversation, we also talked about API calls, and I excerpted that and put that as a separate video, which I don't know if I've released that one. I don't think that one's been released yet. But what was really interesting was someone on the live chat asked about they were getting flagged. They were doing too many API calls too fast, and they were asking for ways to get around that. And what was really interesting was, Tank went off on this really long history of, what API calls are, all this stuff about it. He also did with COM as a different section. Anyway, but what was interesting to me was kind of the why server. His focus is from a server base, not from like you and me calling the client calling the server. And he said because he works as the admin, for the forum, right? And he's like, I would much rather have this very tiny request and only send back this little bit of data versus a browser page load, which is often like 5 to 10 actual API calls with a lot of data, right? And HTML, which is also a lot bigger, and pictures and all this other crap that you probably don't want. So it was a really interesting point of that's why companies love to offer APIs, and because it's so much less data, right? And it's a tiny transaction.
I was even wondering, is it maybe possible? Because most of the time you send an API call, but you actually just need some text. You get a download of text, a gigantic JSON, and you just need a small piece of it. So I was one time wondering if you could also define, just give me those parameters. I'm not sure if it's possible, but
it depends on what you're connecting to. Sometimes you can do filters and say, just give me this back. That's the other one is there is how there's the get and post request, different types of requests. There's also one called head, and that one, if you're just wanting to ping it to see if the timestamp of something or whatever, that one's really fast because you're not actually returning data. But I don't think that's going to suit what you're describing. But I want to throw it out there. If you want to verify that this URL is valid and it's a live thing, it'll return the 200 for you so fast, it's crazy. So I like to use that when I'm just checking if the URL is a good valid URL. And then the other one is, and we did a couple videos on this comparing, because what I do is I get that JSON string and I shove it. I use that, I think it's Coco's objects, where I shove it all into an object. And then I can have it in an AutoHotkey object and easily grab what I want. Well, there's one example. I think we were pinging Yelp. I forget. It was whatever it returned. It was like 14,000 lines of stuff. And so that comma, the code that would put it into the AutoHotkey object took a while to process that JSON string and shove it into the AutoHotkey object. Whereas Isaiah is just parsed, he was using a regular expression to find what we wanted and just get that. And that was lightning fast compared to what we did. And then we used Geek Dude's, he has a new JSON parser that loads in C and runs in C, so it's even faster.
Yeah. It's indeed way better. But even then, for me, I prefer to just use a simple search of the string and then search of the end string and then just take the text between it. Or a regex, that's also they say that it's slow, but yeah, if you need to do a million of them, okay, then it's slow. But if you just need a 10 of them, it's because I knew one conversations of us where I had a question. I have a huge text file and I want to find one line, and if the text file becomes 100,000 lines, will it still be fast? And then you said, let's just test it, and we tested it, and it was just very fast. So it was stupid of me to ask the question.
Oh no, well, it's not stupid. It just worked out where it didn't matter. But yeah, I don't think there's it's generally the only time you have a stupid question is when you've already done it and then you go do it again, kind of thing. You don't learn from whatever the first time. That's never bad. I got your link, and I'm trying, or unless I don't know if you'd mind if I throw it in here. Can you try this link, Dimitri, in IE? I have this program. I was trying to find it. I put it in the chat. I have this link in. I have this tool that downloads stuff, but for whatever reason, when I install it and I go to launch IE won't load. So now that I've really stopped using IE for the most part, I just left that program installed. But I can't. I was trying to. I just wanted to see if this will load in IE, because if it does, this web scraping is so much easier. It loaded in Chrome fine, but given it's a government site, to me, it's much more less likely to be updated in a way that it can't handle IE. But I definitely could be wrong. That's what it looks.
No, cannot reach the website. Even in Chrome, I cannot access.
You know what? It may be they may be monitoring what country you're in and only allowing it, from certain places. Is my guess.
That's possible.
Let me, because I can demo stuff so easily in IE compared to Chrome. But let me find this. Let me bring this over here, and I'm going to share my screen. Share, yes, and that. So this is what. Oops. There we go. Here's the page he's connecting to, and I assume he's to the top table. But anyway, yeah, this would suck to have to try to manage. Now, this is where with IE it's so much easier. The first thing I would do is and let's do it with Fiddler, just because I'm better with Fiddler than I am with the Chrome inspection tools. And I'm going to clear this up. And this is the problem, is we got a lot of traffic, from other stuff. So I'm going to say in Fiddler, filters, and I'm going to use filters should only show traffic from, and this. Oh, that's going to be just that Chrome, but all those instances, no. There we go. This is what I want to. Get rid of all this stuff.
That's indeed quite useful.
Yeah, this should help significantly, and clear this. And now I'm going to refresh this page. And this is where sometimes this acts weird. But now, why did it just stop? Use filters. Show only if you're all contained.
It's indicated contains, so actually it.
Yeah, I agree. Right.
Shouldn't matter if you have less.
All right, I'll just turn off filters. reload. And that was the one, right? So here, no JSON, no XML. We can look at the web view, and this will be like what it actually looks like, but I don't really want to look at that. Look at the raw. So unfortunately, there's no quick, easy way. Maybe it's not even the data. All right, well, let's go back to Chrome, and then this way it's just easier. So Control-Shift-I, bring up this, and I'm going to look at network and clear all traffic. I guess it will show up here. So I'm going to refresh. Now here I can look at my similar stuff, although this is going to limit it to just this window. What I was hoping for is to actually be able to see the data and not have to, we could trigger like this call. Oops, that loaded that, which is fine. At least I know I'm on the right thing. And here is, let's see, if we change this to fetch XHR, this is up more, there we go. There's a jQuery thing. So this, like I said, this gets a little more complicated, but sometimes you can after a little bit of work, you can see the actual data, and then you just replicate that API call, and you don't have to do all the other, you don't have to manipulate the browser page, which would suck. In manipulating Chrome, there is a Chrome class from Geek Dude, and it's you can do stuff with Chrome, but it can be finicky, to say the least. But yeah, let's see. And actually, you know what? Let's show. Let's see if it'll work. Let me pull up your Chrome Explorer. I was playing with it just the other day because I'm working on this new thing that Tom from Tab Nation showed me, that on it you can send JavaScript to like the DOM inside Chrome, and from here, let me see. I got a button for it. I can look at here. So here I have it when I hit left Control and B. I'm just playing around. I can have it go run a script, right? So in AutoHotkey, of course, I could say, hey, trigger, Control B, and so it would activate this, send it. And I'm right now. I think I can. Oh, it's not the right one. Here we go. So this is the JavaScript I have now as a file. Before I was writing it, but I'm like, oh, I can use an external file. So in AutoHotkey, I could automate writing this JavaScript and then send the Control B, where this tool would come in and run whatever it is. And then what I was doing in this example was putting it all into a JSON string. And then I can either, like here, I'm copying it back onto the clipboard, and then I can use that functionality I mentioned earlier about monitoring the clipboard and looking for stuff. Or they also have it where you can save it as a text file. So I think I'd rather monitor the clipboard just because it keeps it in memory instead of saving files. But to me, I'm like, the next step will be automating writing this kind of stuff for people. And so they don't have to learn JavaScript, right? Because that's where I'm like, it's one of the things about AutoHotkey. It's great with COM because it's so straightforward, but using this query selector all and stuff, that could be kind of tricky. And with the tool, so let me get back to the tool, the Chrome Learner. So this is the tool that Dimitri's been working on for me, or with me, not with me because I'm not doing anything, but
Isaiah started and I hijacked it.
Yeah, and I should have, oops, let me see here. So let me come in here, and that's the site. There it is. Oh, but it's not. Do I have to click selector first?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. So you can see how we can programmatically, we're detecting some of the stuff, right? And when you click something here, and this is where, this is why we haven't released it, but you can sometimes get like that has the tag name, but there's no ID, which doesn't surprise me in something at this level. But this is a funky web page. So it'd be pretty tricky to navigate, inside here. I mean, this is probably a table if we were to go up. That's too high.
You need to go all the way down.
Okay, there's the table body, right? And table summary. But oh, look, and it has an ID.
Yeah, but it's not a good ID. It's a random ID.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But you could still say, hey, get me the first table on this page and return back, the content. But yeah, the learner tool still, like I said, it's not there yet. So in lieu of that, we'll come in here, right click and say inspect. And then we can navigate. This is why I was trying to avoid, right? Because this gets kind of hard to look at. I shouldn't even say kind of hard. To me, it's like, wow, it's a lot of information. And sorry, let me, I closed that. Sorry, I closed my window for I think it got absorbed in something else I was doing, the live support. So I don't know if, let me get back to it. For whatever reason, can't get back to that window.
Maybe it's better to use the classes. They seem to be more.
Yeah, classes that's my go-to is using the class name. Close this. You know what? Let me close this for a moment. I'm curious. Also, you know what? Let me close Chrome. Oh, that's why I lost the live stream because we restarted Chrome. And it I don't know why I can't click on this. So I unfortunately, well, I could go to my own channel, I guess. This loads. Sorry about that, Eric. I see. I use in string and loop through lines. Oh, hey Rob, sorry. This loads for yeah. Yeah, so we could. I'll take a look at it after the live stuff's done, or later, and see. One, if we can use API calls instead of IE, but IE, if it's a loading for you in IE, oh holy cow, it's so much easier. I just wish. I'm trying to think of what the stupid name of the program is that I have that I can't. Run IE. Like I'll click it and it doesn't launch. And I wrote them and they're like, yeah, that's a weird bug we're aware of. And I'm like, well, okay, you're not going to fix it. And they weren't. So anyway, but yeah, it could be. IE is a great thing. I have a ton of videos on, and actually someone, I don't know if that was you that said it. Maybe you started off with saying web scraping. Yeah, is awesome. But yeah, the Chrome stuff. That was why not because of Dimitri's Chrome Learner thing, but the Chrome class itself can be buggy, and that's what we're using. And that's part of the reasons why it's kind of buggy. By using this auto control plugin, which I'm gonna do some videos here on in probably a couple days, I think it can help get around some because you're directly, it's already in Chrome as an extension and running it. And I'm hoping that'll get rid of some of these errors and make it simpler. But you got to start learning JavaScript, which isn't fun to me.
Yeah, but it's quite a universal language, so it's a good.
Fair enough, right? Yeah, and it's in some ways the syntax and stuff. It's not like you're learning C or something, right? I mean, it's similar to AutoHotkey in some ways, but it's just it's just different and.
But languages are quite similar. Yeah.
But hey, thanks for joining me here, everyone. And Dimitri, thanks for showing off your stuff. It's really, I was honestly really impressed with that theme stuff. I didn't think it'd make that. I'm like, oh, so what? They're colored, but it truly makes them look much better. Gives a little new life to the old, GUIs.
Yeah, if somebody has the files for the dark mode kind of things, would be very interesting. I'm actually a little bit searching for it, but I think you don't find a lot of files for it. I found one library on GitHub, and as I demonstrated, not everything works 100% of those files. So, but the effect is quite nice, and it's nice that you don't need to do a ton of work to get a nice effect. I'll try to see if I can make it work on version 2, because I'm definitely switching over.
Are you? Cool. Yeah, a viewer of mine was messaging me, asking me questions about AutoHotkey GUIs in general, and I'm like, I'm no expert in them at all. And anyway, I kept telling, he actually gave up and finally said that he's switching back to, I forget what he said. It wasn't VBA, but it was something like it. And I told him, I'm like, you might look at V2 because he's a programmer. And I'm like, look, if you're a programmer, I think V2 is your happy place. You'll be much happier with it. Yeah,
and GUIs is improved a lot. That's one of the main changes of the second version.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And I mentioned Eric in there. Hopefully you have my web scraping syntax writer, because for IE, it's a great way to help you write your syntax as well. It just streamlines, gives you lots of stuff that you can, templates to use. And I got videos on that, so take a look if you haven't used it. But Dimitri, again, thanks for joining, man. And really cool that you're learning more and more and diving into this stuff. It's awesome.
Okay. Have a nice afternoon.
Yeah, have a great evening, man. Take care. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.